Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Claire Johnson, 34, lived a quiet life in her Boston apartment. Since her split from her billionaire ex-husband, David Carter, she had moved on. But that morning, everything changed. A letter with official letterhead lay on her desk. She was inheriting David's estate. She smiled at first, incredulous. An inheritance, after all these years? Perhaps this was her chance to settle her finances and finally move on. But the moment she walked through the door of the lawyer's office, a strange feeling washed over her. David's large, secure safe opened with a metallic click. Inside, financial documents, jewelry, and 7 carefully sealed letters. Each was addressed to a child named Carter. Claire frowned. She knew nothing about these children. Was this some cruel plan or a secret from David? Suddenly, a shiver ran down her spine. She took out the photos enclosed with each letter, unfamiliar faces, some smiling, others serious, all connected by a familiarity she couldn't define. As she read the first letter, a whisper seemed to pierce the pages. If you're reading this, Claire, know that our father loved you, but his life wasn't what it seemed. 7 children, and one last one, the one who will truly inherit. Be careful. Claire's world was turned upside down. What she thought was a simple inheritance was transformed into a labyrinth of family mysteries. Who were these children? Could they really be David's children? And most importantly, what role was she to play in the puzzle he was leaving behind? The silence in the office weighed heavily. Claire clutched the letters to her chest, aware that this discovery would turn her life upside down, and that she was now at the center of a secret that had been hidden for too long. The next morning, Claire Johnson woke up with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. The letters and photos of 7 unknown children still lay on her living room table. She knew she had to act quickly. Who were these children? And why had her ex-husband never told her about them? Determined to understand, she contacted David's lawyer, Thomas Reynolds, a stern man with piercing eyes. Claire, he said in a deep voice, these children came forward as soon as the estate was opened. Each claims to be an heir. They were informed by your ex-husband's previous lawyer. Claire felt a shiver. She had imagined a simple inheritance, perhaps a house or a sum of money, but certainly not 7 unknown children who were about to burst into her life. A few days later, they arrived, one by one, in the vast living room of the Carter residence. Claire looked at each face, trying to detect any resemblance to David. Ethan Carter, 22 years old, black hair and eyes piercing, the first to enter, seemed sure of himself, almost aggressive in his assertiveness. Madison Carter, 19 years old, tall and delicate, with a look that is both shy and observant. Logan Carter, 25 years old, charming smile but calculating, who never stopped evaluating every movement of Claire. Harper Carter, 18 years old, small and reserved, holding his trembling hands, looking at the ground. Caleb Carter, 21 years old, charismatic, posing a frank but intense look. Riley Carter, 23 years old, daring, almost provocative, crossing his arms and challenging Claire with his gaze. Ava Carter, 20 years old, smiling, but her smile seemed to hide a sneaky ambition. Everyone took their seats in the living room, and a heavy silence fell. Claire felt eyes meet, silent alliances form. Welcome. I suppose, she said finally, her voice shaky but firm. I'm Claire Johnson, and I assume you know David. Yes, Mrs. Johnson, Logan replied with a calculating smile. We are her children. And we want to understand what we have inherited. Claire felt her heart race. The children exchanged glances, some nervous, others defiant. She understood that this meeting would only be the beginning of a conflict much deeper than she imagined. As the first dialogue ended, Claire realized that the real test had just begun. These 7 children weren't just in it for the money. Each one carried a secret, and she would have to uncover the truth, before it was too late. In the days that followed, Claire Johnson spent every moment meeting with the 7 children individually. Each encounter revealed a new layer of mystery, and she began to understand that David Carter's life had been far more complicated than she had imagined. Ethan Carter, the oldest, entered the office with an almost arrogant assurance. "I know you doubt me," he said, crossing his arms. "But I am David's son. My mother and he met on a trip to New York. He didn't want you to know." His gaze was frank, but Claire sensed an underlying tension. Ethan seemed used to fighting for what he wanted, and she immediately understood that he would stop at nothing for his share of the inheritance. Madison Carter, on the other hand, was shy and gentle. Sitting opposite Claire, she avoided eye contact at first. I just want to know if you can help me understand my father," she whispered. "I never knew my mother, and he left me alone." His trembling voice, his hands clasped in his lap, inspired in Claire a mixture of compassion and suspicion. Some things seemed true, but she knew she had to keep her distance. Logan Carter arrived next, with a confident smile and an air of permanent calculation. "Claire," he said, "I think you'll love discovering the whole story. David had a lot of secrets, some you didn't even suspect." His gaze pierced Claire like an arrow. She sensed he was playing a bigger game than she'd imagined. Logan already seemed to be pulling the strings of the other children. Harper Carter, 18, was discreet but perceptive. She recounted specific anecdotes about David, which Claire could not confirm but which seemed credible. Her shyness masked a keen intelligence. Caleb Carter, 21, was direct and charming. He spoke of childhood memories that only one of David's children could have known. Claire felt a surge of emotion. Some of the pieces of the puzzle finally seemed to be coming together. Riley Carter, 23, provocative and bold, questioned Claire as if she were under investigation. He wanted to test her reaction, to understand what she knew. Her rebellious energy put additional pressure on the house. Finally, Ava Carter, 20, smiling but mysterious, appeared enigmatic. Her story seemed coherent, but something in her eyes betrayed a hidden ambition. Claire felt she was the most calculating of the group. By the end of these meetings, Claire realized that inheritance wasn't just about money. Each child carried their own set of secrets, grudges, and hopes. And all seemed tied to a greater mystery, a final heir, never mentioned in the letters, who could change the fate of the entire estate. As she sorted the letters and photos on her desk, Claire realized her life would never be the same. She had to uncover the truth before her ex-husband's lies and her children's ambitions destroyed everything she had built. Claire Johnson felt things slipping away from her. 7 unknown children, each with their own stories, and an inheritance that seemed to be turning into a battlefield. She had to know the truth before tensions exploded. After a quick call, she called Mark Stevens, a private investigator renowned for his discretion and efficiency. Tall, square, with piercing eyes, Mark looked like a man capable of unraveling the most twisted secrets. "Claire," he began, "you're asking me to verify the identity of these children. I'm going to do DNA research, genealogical investigations, and verification of their stories." The next day, the detective began his work. The children were surprised by his presence. Some were confident, others nervous. Mark proceeded methodically, explaining to Claire. "Some of them are almost certainly David's children. But for others, there are inconsistencies. The dates, the places, some of the people mentioned, they all don't add up." Ethan reacts strongly. "You doubt me? I'm his son," he yelled. But Mark wasn't intimidated. Madison looked down, visibly relieved that someone was taking things seriously. Logan, always calculating, smiled. "Do you think you can find evidence against me? Good luck." As the days passed, the DNA tests began to come back. 3 children had clear results, they were related to David. The others presented gray areas, some clues suggested indirect links or possible fraud. Mark also reported disturbing information about David's life. He had traveled abroad several times, and some documents suggested he had children hidden in different states. Claire realized that her ex-husband had led a double life, and that the letters she had found in the safe were only the surface of a much deeper mystery. Tensions rose in the Carter household. The children, aware of the investigations, began to distrust one another. Alliances formed, glances crossed, and every conversation had the potential to turn into manipulation or betrayal. Claire realized that money was only part of the problem. The real battle was for the truth, discovering who these children really were, and what role each should play in the inheritance. And in the silence of the house, Claire felt a thrill. One last child, never mentioned, could still change everyone's destiny. The normally quiet and elegant Carter household now echoed with shouts and barely contained arguments. The 7 children, now aware that their identities could be verified by the detective, began to compete for their place in the inheritance. Logan Carter, always the most strategic, summoned Ethan and Caleb into the living room. "Listen to me," he said, "if we want to get the biggest share, we have to be united. We're not letting Madison or Ava decide for us." Ethan, ever impulsive, rolled his eyes. "I'm not sure I want to go through with your plans, Logan. If I find out you're betraying me, trust me, you'll regret it." The tone quickly rose. Caleb, trying to calm the situation, found himself caught between the 2 brothers. During this time, Ava, the more calculating one, approached Claire. "I can help you understand what each of you wants," she said with a mysterious smile. "But you have to trust me." Claire immediately sensed that Ava was manipulating the situation to her advantage, and decided to remain cautious. Madison and Harper, the younger ones, tried to calm things down, but their fragility made them vulnerable to the arguments of the older ones. They watched in silence, noting every word, every gesture, aware that everything could influence the inheritance. The detective Mark Stevens reported the first inconsistencies in some children's stories. This news sowed a wind of paranoia. Everyone began to doubt their neighbor, wondering who was really David's legitimate child. An argument broke out in the dining room. Ethan accused Riley of lying about her age and her memories, while Logan supported Riley, hoping to split the alliances. Voices rose, faces tensed. Claire, standing in the middle of the room, felt the situation slipping away from her. At that precise moment, she understood that the Carter house was no longer a place of family memories, but a battleground where lies and ambitions intertwined. And in the shadows, she realized that a deeper secret remained to be discovered, that of the mysterious 8th child David had mentioned in his letters. As night fell on the large house, Claire sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the children's letters and photos. Her heart pounded. She knew that the next few days would decide not only the future of the inheritance, but also the truth about David Carter and his double life. Claire Johnson spent the morning in David's office, surrounded by piles of documents, letters, and photos she hadn't yet examined. Among them was a series of sealed letters written by David to each of the children. Claire felt a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. These letters might hold the key to understanding this whole story. She began by opening the letter addressed to Ethan. The words were direct. David spoke of their meeting, the hidden life they had shared, and the sacrifices Ethan would have to make to be accepted. Ethan, a legitimate son, had been raised away from the public eye, but David had left specific instructions for his future. Then Claire read the letter from Madison. This revealed that her mother had been a colleague of David's during a humanitarian project abroad. David had promised to protect her, but life had taken a tragic turn. Madison had been left in the dark, but had always maintained an unconscious connection to her father. The following letters revealed a surprising pattern. Some children had been conceived during secret voyages, others had been placed with adoptive families without knowing their origins. David had taken care to leave instructions for each, but had always kept their existence a secret from Claire. Logan and Ava, the most manipulative children, each received ambiguous letters, encouraging them to be ambitious and protect each other. These words were calculated, creating a natural competition between the children. Harper, Caleb E.T. Riley had simpler letters, with specific and affectionate recollections, but no mention of the intrigues David had orchestrated. These letters served to connect them to their father without their fully understanding the complex web of relationships he had built. Reading these letters, Claire understood the extent of the lie. David had led a double life, with children she had never suspected, each carrying a part of her inheritance and her secret. Some stories seemed sincere, but others contained contradictions and gray areas. Detective Mark Stevens then came in with new information. Some addresses mentioned in the letters were impossible, and some memories seemed fabricated. Claire realized that some of the children might be out to defraud the estate and get a share of the inheritance without any real connection to David. This discovery heightened the tension in the Carter household. The children began to suspect one another. Alliances, betrayals, and manipulations were part of every conversation. And at the center of it all, Claire realized that the truth about the succession and David's life remained incomplete. As she closed the last letter, a shiver ran through her. Amidst all these revelations, one letter remained unaccounted for, the one addressed to the mysterious eighth child. This letter could well upset the entire distribution of the inheritance and change the fate of the Carter family forever. The tension in the Carter household had reached an unbearable level. The children now seemed to act more strategically than affectionately, and Claire Johnson realized that inheritance was not just about money, but about power. Logan Carter, true to himself, had begun to manipulate his siblings. He approached Ava in the living room, away from others. "Listen, Ava," he whispered, "if we join forces, we can make sure the biggest share falls into our hands. The others don't know anything about what I know." Ava smiled, but her gaze betrayed an even greater ambition. "Okay, Logan, but I'm sticking to my own plan. I won't be outwitted." During this time, Ethan was beginning to suspect something. He had noticed the knowing glances between Logan and Ava. One night, he slipped into the living room to observe them and overheard a conversation where they were discussing manipulating Caleb and Relato gain more control over inheritance. The next day, the confrontation erupted. Ethan accused Logan and Ava of conspiring behind each other's backs. Voices rose in the main hall, each child taking sides. Caleb tried to calm things down. "Stop. If we continue like this, we risk losing everything." But Ethan's anger and Logan's pride made any discussion impossible. Claire, witnessing this explosion of conflict, felt she had to intervene before the situation escalated. She called all the children into the living room and spoke authoritatively. "I'm not here to take sides," she said. "But I want everyone to be honest. Your lies and manipulation will only make things worse." The children looked down, but the atmosphere remained electric. The detective Mark Stevens took advantage of the confusion to inform Claire of a crucial discovery. Some of David's letters contained specific instructions for certain children, but others seemed fabricated to sow discord. This confirmed Ethan's suspicions. Logan and Ava were playing a double game. By the end of the day, Claire realized she not only had to figure out who the rightful heir was, but also thwart the children's manipulations. She realized that one mistake could turn the Carter household into a veritable battlefield. And in the shadows, a thought haunted her: the mysterious eighth child, the one never mentioned in the letters, could well upset all alliances and redistribute the inheritance in unexpected ways. Claire Johnson felt trapped in a maze of lies and manipulation. Tensions between the children were running high, and despite the help of Detective Mark Stevens, she knew the truth about David Carter's legacy still eluded her. One afternoon, while she was going through the documents in the safe again, she came across a small leather-bound notebook, carefully hidden behind a pile of letters. The handwritten title was simple: "To the one who will truly inherit." Claire felt her heart race. This notebook seemed to be the key to all mysteries. Opening it, she discovered detailed notes from David, dates, places, and most importantly, references to a child never mentioned in the letters, the mysterious eighth child. David wrote, "If you are reading this, know that my inheritance is based on the truth. 7 children know of their existence, but only the 8th heir, the one I have always protected in the shadows, will be able to receive my entire legacy. Beware of imposters." Claire turned to Mark Stevens, stunned. "There is an 8th child?" she asked. Mark nodded, looking serious. "Yes. And I bet that's the centerpiece of all this chaos. He or she could completely redistribute the inheritance." Claire immediately began her research. She pored over all the letters and photos, looking for clues, birthplaces, travels, contacts David might have mentioned. Gradually, a name emerged from the shadows: Jordan Carter, 26, living under a false identity in a remote town. she decided to contact him discreetly. A few days later, she met Jordan in a small cafe. He knew nothing about her parentage. When Claire revealed to him that he was David's son, Jordan recoiled, incredulous and shocked. "You're making fun of me, this can't be true," he muttered. But a quick DNA test confirmed the truth. Jordan was indeed the eighth child, the one David had always protected. Jordan's return immediately disrupted the dynamics in the Carter household. The 7 other children, unaware of his true existence, continued to fight over the inheritance, while Claire realized she now held the key to restoring justice. However, one question remained: how would Jordan handle this revelation? And what additional secrets might David have been hiding in his double life? As the sun set over the great Carter house, Claire knew the real turning point had just begun. David's legacy would reveal even more lies, ambitions, and betrayals than she could have ever imagined. The atmosphere in the Carter household changed dramatically the day Jordan Carter officially entered the family estate. Claire Johnson had arranged a discreet meeting with all the children present, explaining that a new heir was to be revealed, but without revealing all the details. When Jordan walked through the door, his 26 years barely visible in his calm, attentive gaze, a heavy silence fell. The 7 other children exchanged incredulous glances. No one had imagined the existence of an 8th child. Logan Carter, always calculating, was the first to react. "What the? How come we've never heard of you?" Jordan shrugged, displaying a serenity that contrasted with the nervousness of the others. "I just found out who I am. All I know is that I'm supposed to be here." Ethan, impulsive, stepped forward, his face red with anger. "Wait a minute, are you thinking of taking our inheritance?" Jordan didn't respond immediately. He knew his actions in the coming days would determine how much trust he would receive. Claire watched the reactions. Each child was now showing their true selves under pressure. Madison and Harper were silent but attentive, while Riley seemed ready to challenge the newcomer. Ava, on the other hand, cracked a smile. She sensed a new game looming, a new lever to pull. Mark Stevens then calmly explained. "Jordan is DNA verified. He is the 8th heir mentioned in David's notebook. His presence changes the entire dynamic of the succession." Jordan turned to Claire. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Observe, learn, and decide what you want to do with the inheritance," Claire replied firmly. "But know that some here will do anything to manipulate you." Tensions rose instantly. Logan and Ava exchanged a knowing look, while Ethan clenched his fists, ready to fight for what he believed was right. Jordan, however, remained calm and began asking questions about David's life, the secrets he'd kept, and the other kids' true intentions. This was the beginning of a series of explosive confrontations. Alliances were redrawn almost immediately. Some children tried to get closer to Jordan to benefit from his influence, while others plotted to discredit him. For Claire, Jordan's arrival brought both hope and danger. He represented the ultimate truth about the legacy, but he could also spark all-out war within the Carter family. As the day drew to a close, Claire realized one crucial thing: from now on, every move would be strategic, every word weighed. David's legacy was no longer just about money, but a power play, where the slightest misstep could change everything. The Carter house had become a silent battlefield. Every room echoed with whispers and secret alliances. With the arrival of Jordan, the other 7 children felt destabilized. Some tried to rally him to their cause, others to discredit him. Claire Johnson, aware that the situation could quickly escalate, called all the children into the living room. She placed David's letters, photos, and DNA evidence on the table. Silence fell immediately. "I want everyone to speak now," Claire began, calmly but firmly. "The lies and manipulation must stop. You are all here for David's legacy, but only legitimate children will receive what he has planned." Logan, always calculating, tried to speak. "Claire, some things are not what they seem. We all know who should get what." Ethan interrupted him violently. "Don't lie. You manipulated Ava and tried to divide us from the start." The tension exploded. Ava then admitted her role. Yes, I played the game, but I wasn't alone. Logan and I were just trying to protect our rights. That's when Jordan spoke. His calm voice contrasted with the outbursts around him. I didn't come here to steal anything. I just want to know the truth about my father and my place in this family. Claire then read aloud the excerpt from David's notebook, revealing the existence of the eighth child and specifying that he was to receive the main share of the inheritance. The eyes of the other 7 children widened. Jordan is the son David has always protected, Claire explained. He is the true designated heir. The reactions were immediate. Ethan and Madison looked down, stunned. Logan and Ava exchanged glances, realizing their manipulations had just collapsed. Riley and Caleb, shocked, tried to understand how Jordan had been hidden for all these years. Mark Stevens added. Some letters were forged to create conflicts. The true heirs are those confirmed by DNA and by David's authentic letters. This confrontation finally brought to light the true alliances and lies. The imposters were unmasked, and the legitimate children were finally able to recognize each other. The truth about David's double life, his secrets and his intentions, emerged in all its complexity. At the end of the day, Claire realized that the legacy wasn't just material, it was a lesson in loyalty, truth, and courage. Broken relationships could begin to rebuild, but only if everyone accepted reality and their responsibilities. And in the midst of this chaos, Jordan, calm and collected, understood that he now held in his hands the power to restore family balance. The sun rose over the large Carter house, finally illuminating a peaceful atmosphere after weeks of tension and conflict. Claire Johnson sat in the living room, surrounded by the letters, documents, and photographs that had been at the heart of so many mysteries. Jordan Carter, the eighth child and true heir, stood by his side. His presence had changed the family dynamic, putting an end to manipulation and dubious alliances. The other 7 children had been confronted with the truth. Some were legitimate, others had attempted to defraud the succession. Attorney Thomas Reynolds announces the final decision. In accordance with David Carter's instructions and the DNA results, the inheritance will be distributed as follows. Jordan will receive the principal portion, in accordance with your father's last wishes. The legitimate children will receive an equitable portion. Any attempts at fraud or manipulation will be excluded from the estate. The children's faces expressed a mixture of relief and gratitude. Madison and Harper grew closer to Claire, while Ethan and Caleb began to accept reality. Logan and Ava, for their part, had to admit the failure of their plans, but Claire's firmness and authority prevented the anger from turning into open conflict. Jordan, after taking the time to understand David's life and the complexity of his family, addressed the other children. I am not here to divide. My father loved us all, each in his own way. If we want to honor his memory, we must learn to work together and rebuild what his double life has weakened. Little by little, a new climate settled over the Carter household. Resentment and suspicion gave way to cautious cooperation. Claire, empowered by her role as mediator, realized that the inheritance was not just material, it represented truth, reconciliation, and the possibility of a better future. David's notebook, carefully preserved by Claire, became a symbol of this new era. Each child understood that secrets had been necessary to protect some, but that transparency and honesty were now essential. At the end of the day, Claire surveyed the quiet but peaceful house. Jordan settled in alongside his full siblings, and a sense of unity was finally born. The Carter family, once fragmented by lies and ambition, had found a new balance. Claire knew then that, despite everything, truth and loyalty had triumphed. And that the most precious legacy was not money or material possessions, but the reconstruction of a broken family, ready to move forward together into the future.